Hello and welcome to Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Furrow. I'm Karen McCarthy. In this edition, taking it to the beehive. Plans by two Far North farmers for the return of a farmers' political party. They say they've had a guts full of the rural sector getting a raw deal. Years of being underappreciated as this country's primary producers. Time, they say, to stand up and fight. We ask, how dislocated is the caucus from the rural economy? And what exactly is it these blokes want from the folks running the show in Wellington? My guests this week, founders of what will be the New Zealand Rural Party if it gets the required 500 signatures, Ken Rintoul and Joe Carr. Thanks for being with us today.
Morning, Karen.
Let's kick off with why. Why a new rural party and why now?
Karen, we've been involved and concerned with the treatment of our sector for a long time, and we're really concerned about our nation. We just see our nation not taking opportunity of a fundamental resource it's got. It's its rural community, and we're thinking beyond farmers. We think of our rural towns, our primary producers, the manufacturers, basically all the people who are really adversely affected by the set of the exchange rate, New Zealand dollar. So that's the nub of it.
Well, the timing of it, Ken, why now? Why at this point?
I think we've got to the point where we've been fighting legislation through central government and local government. The local government are trying to bring in reforms that are going to make restrict us even more. And if we don't stand up now and these reforms go through, we'll never get them, you never get them back again. So we need to make a stand now. And we've got enough time. We've got 2 years to ramp up to the election. If we tried another year's time, we wouldn't have enough time. We need to get our voice out there and we need to get our concerns out there, because the concerns are coming back to us now exactly like what we thought they were. We've had hundreds of people coming back to us saying, we've been waiting for this voice for a long time and it's not happening.
You talked about the treatment that farmers, that the rural sector has had. I mean, what are the concerns? What treatment? What is it that you're concerned about?
I'd relate it in this way. I'd say it's just like an unhappy marriage where partners have lived together for a long time and one partner has been very dominant and had no regard to the other for some time. And the other partner said, look, we want to leave on good, amicable terms. Please respect us. We want to work with you. And we're not out for a battle, we're out to influence. We're out to influence policy in Wellington. We believe, and we have put some private resources into this, we believe that we'd get 3,000 votes at least in Northland and average 1,000 across each electorate in New Zealand. We believe we could get 6 seats, and we believe that our sector should be given some due respect.
One of the things that's been said, I don't know if you'd call this a motto, is wrong is wrong, fair is fair, and enough is enough. What do you mean by that? What's wrong with the way things are?
I actually campaigned to get into national and try and get into Parliament and one of my main things was bureaucrats. The bureaucrat number is growing, even though the government says it's reducing. They're just farming them out and making sectors pay for them. Like NATE's a prime example. They took bureaucrats out of Wellington, now they've got them running NATE, which we didn't need because the old system worked perfectly fine.
Should explain what NATE is.
There was the electronic tagging system.
Yes,
I think we know
Karen,
it came in on July the 1st.
It was working in the past, but now they bring in some fancy system that we didn't have any say in. We have no input into it. It was just lobbied on top of us. And basically we see it as it's revenue gaining from the lifestyle farmers that have got half a dozen cows or 10 sheep or something like that. Sheep will come into it eventually, and you're going to have a number plate on every animal, and it's going to be tracked through New Zealand. So all the small people, they're going to capture you much on the same terms as they've taxed the guys delivering the paper. It's the same thing. They're going after all the little people for the tax.
And you're saying what? Waste of time, waste of money?
We didn't need it.
Yeah.
We had a system in place. A guy put insecticide on his cow. They traced it back to him. They fined him. The system was working. It didn't need to be changed. They've put imposed costs on farmers, and they're imposing more and more bureaucrats on farmers. We're going down the same road that England's got, where they've got more bureaucrats involved in a farm than they've got farm workers on it. So we're going to get top heavy. We can't afford that. We need to stop it now. The other problem with the bureaucrats is they know that the government's here only for 3 years, and they know that a minister might only be here for a term until they reshuffle. So they can fob them off or feed information or misinformation, knowing that they do whatever they like. They're a law unto themselves, and we've got at the moment the tail wagging the dog. We need to stop that, and we need to have our input into it.
Let's talk a little bit about who you both are. I mean, where you came from and what your business is. You're both beef farmers up in the north?
Well, I am. I'm beef and forest owner, family business. And Ken, of course, is a farmer, another family farmer, and he's got a major civil engineering contracting business.
You've got one of the biggest civil contracting firms in the north, haven't you?
The private one, yes.
Mm.
But you're both lifelong farmers?
Yeah, multi-generation farmers.
Mm. And you've seen the change then. You've seen the change over the decades, and you don't like where things are heading.
Yeah, I think it. You know, New Zealand's losing a huge opportunity. Instead of using the best out of the rural community, and it could be easily achieved, they're actually subjecting the rural community to sort of what we call policies from the leafy suburbs of Auckland. They just don't fit. And they want to get the best out of us. They want to involve us in the processes because, you know, we're very open about improving, and we want to use information and knowledge and use it wisely. But when we're given this sort of constrained dictates and policies which come down from Wellington, and they're put on the councils and the minor council, and then the council is legally obliged to implement it, it's just a huge, massive waste of resource. Look, if the exchange rate settings got down to around 60 cents and we had 20% more income from our farms, the nation would have a huge benefit. It's absolutely huge. And with the right sort of environment, farmers' productivity will increase, manufacturers' productivity will just go up, employment will go up, starts answering New Zealand's problems. And we're absolutely astounded that the things they do at government have perverse effects. For instance, the sale of assets, putting aside the strategic issue there, which I've got strong feelings about, when you have those shares on the share market and they're likely to be sought from overseas, you're going to find an upward trend on the exchange rate. You might get some short-term cash by selling capital, and it's going to create trading problems for the nation. It just goes on.
What you're saying is that you're concerned not just for farmers, not just for the rural sector, for the future of this country. This is why you're doing this.
Yeah, we're worried about the resilience of this nation, and really, we love New Zealand. Most people do, and we're passionate about our country, and we just get so discouraged to see what we think are poor governance decisions. You know, we're seeing right now, we're seeing the banks offering $1,000 cash to borrow some money to buy a house. You never see an advertisement to offer funding for productive investment. And we're going into that same housing crisis spiral. It'll probably lead to that again. We just can't seem to get ahead.
There's a lot of thought being put into this, obviously, before you guys have gone public. Was it a big step? I mean, you've done your homework, you've done some legwork.
No, we're just the surface of this.
Yeah.
This, and we've travelled across New Zealand, and farmers, you know, people like myself, we don't come forward to express ourselves a lot, but it's universal. We can do a lot for this nation. We just need some respect and recognition for what we can do.
Coming up, where do the feds fit into all of this? Bruce Wills and the Federated Farmers team is meant to be the voice of the rural sector. How will they feel about this new political initiative? More after the break. Hello, I'm Karen McCarthy and you're back with Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Furrow. Our guests, Northland farmers and political aspirants Ken Rintoul and Joe Carr. How or where do the Federated Farmers fit into all of this? Ken?
From my talking to some of the feds, they don't want to get political. Then basically their mandate is they're not allowed to get political. I think they're trying to work with government and appease government, but they need political clout. And that's why we decided we need to step up. Like Joe said, we're not trying to steal anyone's thunder. But everyone's been talking about it, and it's time to get on with some action. The time is right. We're losing our rights as farmers, and we need to work with federated farmers. There's no two ways about that. Up here we've got Farmers of New Zealand, and we need to work with everyone. We need to work with all the sectors. We need to work with all the manufacturing sectors. But the underlying thing is we need to actually get them to stop, the political beings to stop and think what they are doing and how they're affecting our communities.
What rights have farmers lost? You talk about farmers' rights.
Well, there's a lot of rights that we're losing. We're losing rights to land production. I just went to a meeting last night where they're going to try and legislate what we can do with our land. You might be farming now and running beef on it, and they'll say, no, you can't put beef on there anymore. It's almost getting to communism type farming. We're losing the right to, with the exchange rate, we can't actually invest in our businesses. We can't attract people to our businesses because it's perceived as a lower type business. It's not IT, it's not being in an office in Auckland. It's we're even seeing it with our own children. They're not going into farming. We're going to have to sell up eventually our own farms, and hopefully a Kiwi will buy it, because our kids are saying, well, you know, it's hard work. You get up at 5 in the morning, you go out in the mud and the rain, and what thanks do you get for it? You have a whole lot of debt, and you get a whole lot of restrictions placed on you. The big thing from our point of view is it's a trickle-down effect. It starts from the rural, and everything trickles and ends up in Wellington. It doesn't trickle up. You know, a river is made by a whole lot of springs that feed a river. They need to remember that the rural sector and the manufacturing sector and all the primary producers and our communities are what actually keep this country going.
Have farmers, Joe, they'll have the stomach for a fight perhaps, but have they got the fight in them? As Ken's just said, farmers are hard at it 24/7. Farming is a hard job. You know, do you guys have what it takes to actually put your efforts into something like this?
What you're asking is and talk beyond farmers, is the rural community, our small towns, have we got the cohesion? That's the issue.
Do you?
I believe we have. I really believe we have. And we're getting the message loud and clear. Rise up to it and do it. But we want to be really constructive. We want to be absolutely constructive. We want to be in a position, and we've seen how MMP parties have a balance of power, but we're not going to actually drive for unfair advantage. We really want to have some principles on this one. Absolutely sure. But we've got some issues that really trouble us too. And one of course, is sovereignty issues with land. And we've got some views on that too. But we've got to make it very clear. Ken, myself and our working group have views, and we are going to poll potential members and get them to prioritise it. And it could be there'll be shifts. There'll be shifts when we have greater response of what we think are the most important issues.
How do you go about getting some real geographic spread? You guys are, say, from up north. How do you make this a truly nationwide initiative, especially given every region is different, has its different issues and concerns?
Karen, we've got absolutely a universal problem across New Zealand. We actually think we're going to get a lot of support from the towns. We respect the towns. We're not fighting with the towns. We're saying all of New Zealand could be better if we could actually advantage our manufacturers, our productive people. We want to see people employed. The solutions help us all.
The biggest luxury that both of us could have at the moment is our income. If it went up 15%, between 15 and 20%, our luxury would be another farm worker or a farm worker. I wouldn't be getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go and feed out, to be at my work site at 7 to organise my guys. If I could get a farm worker, and you would find that would be with 2,000 or 3,000 farmers. Their luxury would be another farm worker. So automatically you're starting to solve issues by just getting that exchange rate down, get money back to, like I say, the springs, and it all ends up back in Wellington anyway. I mean, 80% of every dollar earned for the country goes back into the tax take. So the government gets it. The more we can actually spin it around a community, the more they get.
What went wrong then? When did the rot set in, and how did the government lose its way, do you think?
And
which government lost its way?
We've had it for a little while. We had a Labor government that had wonderful trading opportunities and didn't save it and consumed it. And we had a government, our national government, the first term, and they're still borrowing 300 million a week to keep the lifestyle going. So that's really what it's about. When you're borrowing, it pushes the exchange rate up. We're not saying get in there and have a fixed exchange rate and peg it. What we're saying is, hey, fiscal restraint when we needed it was in the last 3 years especially. Government is talking about it now, but we've actually led our country into a sort of an expectation loop, and it's a worry. It's a real worry. Our future is really being compromised, and this is a personal view. I stress it's a personal view, but the sale of the state-owned renewable power generators built by previous generations is something that New Zealand is just absolutely admired for worldwide. It's a wonderful strategic resource. Why sell it for consumption? And virtually that's what it is. It's an absolute shame. And so where am I? My kids say I'm right of Genghis Khan. There's a socialist element to me. I just think that we're losing our resilience as a nation. And I try to do my best in my limited way. I'm on the regional council, work there. I'm really concerned about erosion of property rights there, and I understand how you've got to balance them with requirements of society. And it's a hard balance, but it's completely shifted one way. We get dictates, national policy statements, etc., coming down from Wellington. When we're assessing our streams for their viability, we're told that we've overtaxed them by 300%. In other words, the water should be running out of the pipe on the farm back into the river. God knows where the water would come from. And this is based on the sort of information we're getting from government. So it is an absolute problem. And talking about environmental issues, farmers do need to step forward, and we always will. We're getting good information, and it's how to sort out the muck from the sensible stuff.
We've heard, haven't we, farmers get a bad rap, but it's easy to take cheap shots. Farmers actually are, for the most part, responsible and doing something.
Yeah, the biggest issue that we're always going to have is we're 20% of the population, maybe 25% if you take all the rural towns and the lifestyle blocks in. We will never get the recognition, because it's quite easy to beat up on the farmers. If anything's wrong, it's the farmer's fault. This is wrong, it's the farmer's fault. If the infrastructure's not in, it's the farmer's fault. And we've been telling them for years. I mean, we've got a wall of wood in Northland, and we've been telling them for 30 years, this wood's coming, and we haven't got the roads ready, and the roads are falling to bits, and they're saying, well, you guys are wrecking our roads. You've been taxing us for 30 years to get the water out. You haven't been putting the money back into the infrastructure.
More on that after the break, including a little history. We look back a century to when the nation's farmers first formed their own political party and what followed. Stay with us, back shortly. Welcome back to Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Furrow. We're talking with Joe Carr and Ken Rintoul. Joe, you were about to jump in just before the break on the road funding issue. Oh, yeah, that's just a universal issue in rural New Zealand. Absolute pain is being experienced as the National Land Transport Funds, that's from your fuel taxes, are virtually being channeled right into the metro areas. Auckland consumes 46% of it. The RONS projects will run out probably 20 years, and we can't even get minor safety improvements done on unsealed roads. We think there's other roads of national significance, other RONs, and they're our rural roads. Every bit of produce in New Zealand, well, not every bit, but most of it starts on a little unsealed road and works its way to the port through processing. So that's an issue, and it's a great concern to councils. I could go on for a long time about it. I'd like to touch on one other quick issue. It's ETS. We have trouble with the science behind there, because unfortunately I was overeducated, got a school certificate, and I did a thing called the carbon cycle in science. Every gram of carbon in an animal, in it, and its natural discharges, breathing, etc., has come from carbon dioxide in the air through photosynthesis and is returned. This is absolutely mad, this tax. And NATE, we believe, is linked to this, because they actually want to have a really good taxation system going. There's no science to it. No other country's embracing it. Ken, how long since you feel farmers actually had a voice, had allies in Parliament? How far back do you have to look?
I would say you'd have to go back 20 years, and it's been slowly falling. They've been falling off the wagon. You can't blame them because they're trying to get votes, they're trying to get into power, and the urban vote is the one that's going to get them into power, not the rural vote. So it's a very tight line to get the urban and get enough rural to get them into power. I mean, honestly, I've voted National for 30 years. I only just voted National last time, but it was touch and go. I've had most probably 20 people in the last 2 or 3 days ring up and said they will not vote for National this time around. They won't even vote. And I said, well, why did you vote in the past? And they said, well, they're the default party.
How do you woo those voters in the true blue electorates away from National then? Is that going to be a big struggle?
It's going to be a big struggle because of people's perception that we're not going to get enough numbers and we're not going to do any good. If they want change, it's up to them. We can't force them to come to us. We can put up good policies, we'll put up good mandates, we'll involve the rural community. They're going to make the policies and mandate. We're going to go out to everyone. Joe and I are going to tour the whole country for most probably a month, set up meetings, explain, ask them what they want, get it back from them, because region by region it changes. So we need to get our policies and our mandates sorted out, but we're not going to do it. What we're saying at the moment is our views. We're getting a lot of other views from people, and they're actually good views, and they need to be included. So we're not going to dictate to people. We're going to ask them, what do you want? What sort of change do you want? A lot of it's coming back to the carrot and the stick. They're sick of the big stick. They want to take ownership of their rights again. They want to take ownership of their communities again. They want their old people to be able to stay in the communities, not have to go to cities for healthcare. They want to encourage their young people to stay because there's a future in it. At the moment, the young people are saying there's no future in farming. Let's go somewhere else. Let's go and get a degree and then do an OE. Let's load the country up with more debt and then let's go overseas. Let's go to Aussie. There's more future there. If actually the whole of New Zealand got behind us and got the perception right that there is a big future as a primary producer with manufacturing, doesn't matter what it is, you don't have to be from the rural community. If you want this country to be a stable country and to go ahead like it used to, I mean, that's where we'll get the voters. If they see our policies make sense, if they see we're in the right direction, if they see that we're needed there to get their voice across. The other thing that we've always said is we want to represent our people to Parliament, not Parliament back to our people. At the moment, whatever Parliament says, their ministers have to vote whatever the party says.
There are precedents. Farmer Bill Massey did this 100 years ago with the Reform Party, and a country party contested elections back in the 20s. But it is a very different world out there now. Farming back then was the be-all and the end-all. There wasn't really anything else going on in New Zealand. But, you know, the landscape's changed, hasn't it? But
yeah. Karen, you're dead right. And we expect to see some people that come up, and we expect to see some people that are really magnificent come forward in the New Zealand Rural Party and probably take leadership roles. We're not saying we're there because we're initiating it and we've got to stay at the top. We'll see what happens. Look, Mike Moore, what a New Zealander. You know, what a New Zealander. And Colin Moyle, what a Minister of Agriculture we had as a nation. But we also had some pretty damaging Labour policies too. 1984, provincial New Zealand was destroyed. So there is a balance. So what we want to do is work on the best points with anyone in the, we'll call it the political marketplace.
If there was no MMP, we'd be just another voice on the street. We'd be out there beating our drum, wasting our time. I mean, they might listen to you if you get 1,000 farmers march, but the only time I've seen farmers march was when we had a bit of a set to in Kaikoai, and then there's been a couple at Parliament. But generally farmers are so busy, an average 12-hour day, they don't have time for this thing. They actually like to go and watch a game of rugby and have a beer with their mates and things like that. That's what their social part of their life is more important than their political side of their life.
But you're saying what now? It's time to stand up, to draw a line in the sand.
Yeah. If they want change, they have to make change themselves. We can't force them. We can't drag them along to the polls. They have to come back to us and say, this is what we think, or we actually want guidance from them. We need some very smart people out there saying, no, you're actually going to go wrong there. So we are saying to everyone in New Zealand, we're going to need a lot of help. Even now, the amount of work that we're doing is treble what we expected. We're answering emails on all night. I answered the emails till midnight last night. So I mean, we're going to need a lot of help from a lot of people, and we need smart people to come on board. Like Joe said, we don't expect to be at the top. We just need someone to kick it off, and people will turn up.
We will watch with interest, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you,
You've been
Karen.
watching Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Furrow. Thanks to my guests, Joe Carr and Ken Rintoul, and as always to you at home for watching. If you'd like to get in touch, check out the Country 99 TV website. We value your feedback. I'm Karen McCarthy. See you next time for more Straight Talk.